subscribe, like, comment and share to support the channel. Thank you for the support. The story begins with somebody's foot stepping heavily into the snow. A question is being asked, a question that everyone thinks about once throughout their time on Earth. What is life? A figure is seen running fast as snow pours heavily all around. An arrow is flying through the air at a great speed. Its destination was to the figure that was running away. The arrow soon meets its target. It pierces through the ankle of the figure who was running away. The answer to what is life is soon revealed as the man whose ankle had been shot trips over. The answer to what is life is that it is a boiled egg. The mysterious figure soon collapses onto the ground filled with snow, his foot covered in blood and his body filled with pain from being shot by the arrow. He soon thinks about what life being a boiled egg meant. The figure looks up to the sky. A man with arrows on his back and a blade pointed to the figure's face appears in the snowy night. He issues a command out loud, "Search him." The figure soon tells us that life being a boiled egg meant that there is no meaning. A group of men could be seen surrounding the figure. One of them yells out that he had found a relic. As they held the mysterious figure's head down, one of the men inspects a goblet embedded with rubies. The man who had issued the command from before raises his sword high into the air. This was the execution of the mysterious figure. Blood is spilled just as the mysterious figure's last thoughts were revealed. "In the end, I was killed, just like in the game." "Murder," said a voice. "Do not be angry, mother of corruption," replied the young man who had just been executed. But the voice continues to shout out loud, "Murder." The young man's body began to glow green as he tells the voice that it was necessary to die once here. But the voice shouts, "Murder, murder, murder." The voice continued to shout. The young man's body started to walk on its own, covered in a green glow. The young man's head was still able to speak. He speaks to the voice about the divinity that was within the relic that it was worried about. The headless body soon picks up the young man's head. The young man tells the voice that he had already collected it, which was why there was no need to have a useless tail following him. The young man had placed his own head back onto his headless body. A line on his neck started to heal with the green glow. Just as the voice continued to shout murder, he lets out a smile and holds a hand covered in bandages, telling the voice that he did happen to lose some money. A flashback is seen from when our hero was just an ordinary boy. His life when he had reached his late 20s made him too busy and tired to play games. That's why he had always made compromises with reality by using an editor. Our boy basically hacked games to give him infinite health and mana, like those hackers in GTA 5 who had infinite money. But our boy didn't even remember the name of the game, or why he had bought the game, but he simply kept playing it. In order to play it as the priest of corruption, a scary-looking dude with green glowing eyes with a hot babe behind him is revealed. But what is the priest of corruption? It was the hardest to progress, the hardest to play, in the worst performing class. But what was he supposed to do about his heart racing whenever he played this game? Based on the image, I'm guessing it's not just his heart that's racing, if you guys catch my drift. Around the time when all of his class progression materials were gone and he had completed all his class quests, something happened. His computer screen started to shine brightly. He was pulled into it, spiraling down a green vortex, and fell into the game. Our boy had become the priest of corruption. The hand covered in bandages held onto our boy's chest, constantly shouting murder to him. He seems okay with the hand on his chest. The thing that keeps screaming like a death metal singer is the goddess that he served, the mother of corruption. It all started 5 years ago when he first started serving the mother of corruption. When he woke up in the game, the only two things that he had were the one robe of the order of corruption and the mother of corruption's hand that was laying on his chest. Due to the large presence that he could feel connected to the hand, he was able to easily accept that he had fallen into this game pretty early on. According to the game's description, the priest of corruption was a genetically enhanced human modified by drugs. As a result, he had enhanced physical capabilities, heightened senses, basically like Captain America. Our boy also had a body that could only be killed by divinity, but a thought came through his mind. He wonders if there was maybe something wrong with his brain. While he had never been able to stand the sight of blood, even watching a gruesome scene like the bear devouring its prey had no effect on him. But he did have one problem. His body was no longer able to feel, or even taste anything. Just as he was starting to crave for some pork belly and kimchi, the scene changes to a building. A voice calls out to Priest Marnak in order to present him his ID. Another voice thanks the person. It's revealed to be our boy, the priest of corruption. His name is Marnak. Before leaving, he asks the receptionist if there was any work that he could take on. She tells him to wait for a moment and began to look through some files. She tells him that they might have some work for a priest serving the goddess of preservation like him. Marnak simply smiles at her in silence. Within this place, after entering the northern city Gias, Marnak had decided to impersonate a member of the Order of Preservation. If he was in a different order, the moment he impersonated a member of another order, his god would have become furious and marked him. A mark that only members of that order can see, a seal of punishment. However, his mother was benevolent in regards to impersonations like this. The Order of Corruption was the enemy of all, and Marnak, who was hated by all, was the mother of corruption's only follower. The receptionist giggles while holding a piece of paper. She tells Marnak that it was right here, this was the one. Marnak looked at the paper with a bored expression as the receptionist tells him that she was glad to work with him. The paper contained an announcement. It was about bandits or monster hunting. Recently, the number of farmers that have gone missing while heading towards Guis has slowly increased. Those who find the reason behind these disappearances and feed it will receive 30 nips of silver per head. Even if you do not defeat anything, you will receive 1 nip of silver from the Lord of Guis. The receptionist was impressed with Marnak for reading, as most other mercenaries would request that she reads everything for them. Marnak chuckles and tells her that it was not that special of a skill, but he thought about the moment he fell into this world. He was able to read and write the language of this world. After reading the paper, he places it back onto the table, asking her a question. With tears in his eyes, he asks her if he was able to receive part of the reward right now. The scene changes to a group of travelers moving along the snowy paths of the mountains. Marnak recalls the receptionist as being somebody who talks a lot and tells Mother about it. Mother shouts murder. He grips her hard and hid her within his robes. He tells her that he didn't fall in love with the receptionist, and that if she keeps saying that, he would really get angry at her. A figure appears behind Marnak, calling out to him. A blonde, cute little man appears. He asks Marnak if he could talk about where he came from, since he was sure that Marnak had came from somewhere other than Guis. The blonde boy continues to tell Marnak that if they keep walking along this road, his village should appear pretty soon. The blonde boy hopes that his mother and father were doing well. Marnak looks at him and wonders if he said his name was Pierre. My bad, this isn't a little boy, it's a big boy. Pierre continues to talk to Marnak, telling him that he was sure that his parents would be able to last throughout the winter. It was thanks to Captain Gala donating a good amount to them, but he wonders why he keeps worrying about them like this. He then asks Marnak if he knew this, that there were rumors that the beings kidnapping the farmers on this road aren't people or monsters, but ghosts. Marnak could only think that this thick big boy can sure talk a lot. Another member of the group calls out to Pierre. He turns to Marnak to inform him that it looked like he was needed at the front, but assures him that he would be back soon. Mother continues to shout murder. Marnak touches his chest, wondering why she keeps telling him to kill everyone. If all of them died, it would become an issue for him. But murder was all she replied him. Marnak's eyes go crazy all of a sudden. He tells Mother that she had never said anything when he had returned to Guis, but right now, her son is in desperate need of 29 silver nips. He tells Mother that he would like to spend this winter in warmth. Mother replies with, wait for it, murder. Marnak smiles upon hearing her reply this time. He soon tells her that it seems he was a little too aggressive, so there was no need to be sad like that. She replies with murder. Marnak soon asks Mother how many fingers would she rate everyone. The thick big boy had a 1 rating while the man who called him had 2. Marnak thought about if he were to kill them and send them to the Mother of Corruption, he would be able to receive divinity according to the number of fingers they were rated. 1 finger is 10 divinity. 2 fingers is 100 divinity. 3 fingers is 1,000 divinity. 4 fingers is 10,000 divinity. 5 fingers is 100,000 divinity. If Marnak manages to collect 10,000 divinity, he can earn 1 authority. Thanks to the system, he was able to absorb the divinity of a holy relic, and he gained an authority. There are now only 12 relics. The Mother of Corruption told him that if he was able to collect the divinity of every relic, all his wishes would be fulfilled. Marnak licks his lips, thinking that his first wish was to regain his sense of taste. Pierre tells Marnak that the captain had told him to not bother him too much. If you kept talking to me like that from the break of dawn, I'd be so annoyed, is what the captain told Pierre. He repeats the same words to Marnak with a depressed aura, but Marnak tells him that he was fine with a smile. He tells Pierre to not worry too much about him, but he soon opens his eyes to see something. Arrows were being shot towards their group. A few of them had managed to land onto some of their group members. Marnak immediately grabs onto the collar of Pierre as he stood there with a stunned expression on his face. He tosses Pierre far behind him with ease. More arrows are seen being shot towards their group. 2 of the arrows managed to land onto Marnak's body as he tightened his jaw from the pain. Pierre calls out to him in shock as he sees that Marnak had fallen over due to the arrows. Archers wearing cloaks were now seen hiding amongst the bushes and had fired from that position. Marnak laid on the cold snowy ground with blood everywhere. Mother calls out to him as he breathes heavily, thinking that it must be bandits. Mother talks to him as he opens his eyes. He notes that she wanted him to play dead and to collect their divinity when he gets the chance. Marnak thought that it would be the easiest thing for him to do, but he soon changes his mind, asking Mother if she knew this. She calls out to him as Marnak stood up with his eyes focused on a sword a few inches away from him. He immediately grabs onto it and swings it around, telling Mother that he did things like this, posing with the sword in a stance that was ready for a fight. Our boy ain't no bitch. With a crazy look in his bright glowing green eyes, Marnak rushes towards the ones that had attacked him. The archer who was hiding in the bushes was alarmed to see that Marnak was still able to run. With a single swing of his sword, Marnak was able to cut off the archer's head with ease. An ally of the archer watched from behind a tree, shocked at the fate that had fallen onto his comrade. His face was filled with annoyance and anger. He cursed in his mind over this sight. He orders the men around him to leave the priest him, and that they should come help him after they had handled the rest of Marnak's group. Marnak soon notices something that catches his attention. He turns to see what it was. The man who was behind the tree had finally appeared. They clashed their swords together with a mighty bang. The man wore a bright smile on his face while Marnak had a calm expression on his. With another swing of his blade, Marnak manages to land a heavy blow to the blonde man. The blow was powerful enough to send his flying a far distance away from Marnak. Marnak immediately thought of Fingers, not in a perverted way, but based on how Mother would rank people. He looks down on his chest and asks her how she would rank him. The blonde man soon became enraged. A deep red aura covered his blade as he prepares another attack. "What the F are you saying?" he shouted with a smile on his face. Their blades soon collide with one another again. Marnak and the blonde man continued to trade blows with one another, constantly moving through the deep sick, trying to end each other's life in a moment. Mother soon reveals her ranking of the blonde man. She reveals to Marnak that she ranked him as 2.5 fingers. Marnak was surprised to learn that a mere bandit was on the same level as the ranger who slit his throat from before. Our boy gets turned on, really turned on. His face blushes hard as he thought of how this game is so unbalanced. But the blonde man lets out a fierce roar, attempting to unleash another powerful blow. Marnak was alarmed to see this. "Murder!" shouted Mother, just as a piece of a sword is seen flying through the air. Marnak curses in his head. The piece of the blade landed far from them. It seems that the piece belongs to Marnak. His sword had lost in the exchange of blows with the blonde man. The blonde man started to laugh like a maniac. "This is why I use the frost steel," he shouted towards Marnak, who was looking at his sword that was snapped in half. He lets out a deep sigh, stating that it was a weapon diff after all. The blonde man slowly approaches Marnak, telling him that there was nothing particular about him, so he was going to let him off. He continues to tell Marnak about how his group were planning for this to be their last job and to leave the area anyways, which was he wanted Marnak and him to both call it quits and leave while they were both smiling. Our boy held a smile on his face after hearing that from the blonde man. He soon drops his broken sword into the snow, but a creepy smile soon creeps across his face. He tells the blonde man that to allow him to provide another offer. Marnak tells the blonde man to stop being a bandit and to leave this place immediately. If he does, Marnak was willing to go easy on him, he says with a cheerful expression. The blonde man couldn't believe what Marnak said. He asks him if he was being serious, and continued to question him on whether he really think that they would just say okay and leave. But before Marnak could reply to the blonde man, an arrow comes flying fast and straight into the side of his head. "You're late, you bastards. I thought he was going to kill me," shouted the blonde man in joy as Marnak falls from the surprised arrow attack. Members of the blonde man's group had arrived. They tell him to stop messing with them as they had saw how he had split Marnak's sword in two. The blonde man bragged to them that he had calculated where to swing the sword in order to cut it. The other members laugh and teased him that he was the best. The blonde man soon asks them if they had killed everyone else. The group replied that they had made sure to kill every last one of them. "Did you really kill everyone?" said a voice. The members of the bandit group were all shocked to hear that voice. Marnak's supposed dead body began to move on its own. Even the blonde man had a frightened look on his face. "Everyone? What are you so surprised about?" said the voice. Marnak's body began to let out the green aura once again. He stands up, stating that a person who survived after being shot in the head by an arrow. "Is this your first time seeing one?" he asks the bandits after snapping the arrow that was shot into his head into half. All the bandits soon began to realize that they weren't the main characters in this story, but food for the true hero, our boy Marnak. He soon places his hands together, telling the bandits that he had already given all of them a chance. "You people had answered by aiming an arrow at my head," Marnak states as the green aura started to rage more violently around him. The feeling of death soon explodes towards the blonde man who was staring in disbelief. He snaps out of it quickly, turning to his men and ordering them to fire at Marnak. More arrows were sent flying towards Marnak, who continued to stood still. The arrows had pierced him on 2 areas on his chest, but seemed to have no effect on him. He then started to chant a prayer. "O Mother of Corruption, your son has fallen into the state of peril. I am too surprised and scared to know what to do. If you were beside me watching, don't you think this would be an appropriate situation to come and help?" The bandits began to grow more fearful of our boy. They couldn't believe what they were witnessing and wondered if he was a monster. As soon as Marnak was done with the prayer, the blonde man orders his men to retreat. He yells at them, "Run, you bastards!" But as his men tried to run away, they couldn't. They shouted back that they couldn't go any further as there seems to be an invisible wall in front of them. Loud and painful shouts could be heard as they tried to break through the invisible wall. Marnak stares at them with vengeful eyes. The invisible wall was the line in which the living cannot pass, which was an authority that the priest of corruption must activate before they can unleash their power. It prevents the living enemies from getting away and conceals the divinity of corruption. The bandits began to beg for someone to save them, wondering what the invisible wall even is. A demonic circle soon appears in the air above Marnak. He smiles with joy, telling Mother that he really likes this authority a lot. Seeing that they couldn't break through the invisible wall with their hands, the blonde man realizes that they had no choice and ordered his men to unsheath their swords. Before he could finish his order of slicing through the barrier, the green aura that had surrounded Marnak had suddenly appeared all around the blonde man just as a dark shadow appeared above him. Something massive, like your mama, soon lands directly on top of the captain, causing a huge explosion to occur. Like you in the toilet after eating Taco Bell. Members of the bandit group were frozen in fear as only one of them could call out to their captain. A gigantic white figure-like monster had suddenly appeared within the barrier itself. Its fist was plunged deep into the ground where the captain had once stood. The bandit fell flat on his ass as he stares at whatever this shit is. Guys, even I'm freaked out by this monster. Fear and horror soon enveloped their surroundings as they muttered the word monster. The jacked white monster soon lets out a horrifying roar into the air. It lands with a heavy impact with each step it took forward. The bandits returned to the invisible wall, slamming their fists against it in hopes of breaking free from it. Tears and drool began to drip from their faces as they continued to beg for someone to save them as they watched the white monster come closer to them. They soon begged Marnak to save them, promising him that they would never be bandits ever again. But Marnak simply held a smile on his face even after hearing their pleas for mercy. He issues a command, apart from their heads, "Do as you please with everything else." Screams of pain and horror, sounds of flesh being ripped apart, blood splattering everywhere. These noises continued to fill the air for a long time. After the noise started to die down, Marnak began to walk. Mother shouts out murder as he soon reaches his own group. None of his members could be seen alive as dead bodies surrounded the overturned carriage. Marnak was alone. Mother speaks to him, but he questions her about whether she wanted him to collect divinity. If he collected their divinity, wouldn't their bodies disappear? Asked Marnak. He explains to Mother that if he does so, the guild members who come here to investigate will surely think that something's up. A painful groaning sound catches Marnak's attention as he turns to see what it was. It was Pierre. Our cute big boy was breathing heavily while on the snowy ground. His face was filled with pain as an arrow is seen pierced onto left side of his body. Mother shouts murder to Marnak as he approaches him. Marnak tells Mother that he would wrap up so that she can rest in peace. He continues to tell her that he would do his best to save Pierre as he was sure that it will be helpful for his reputation, which was why he needed Mother's help. He tells Mother to stop the progression of Pierre's wounds. The scene changes to a blue-haired woman holding the goblet that our boy had stolen and was killed for in Chapter 1. The woman questions about what happened to the individual who stole the relic. A man replies to her that he was told that Marnak had been beheaded on the spot. She then questions about what had happened to his body. The man tells her that the ranger had no supplies to spare. They had no choice but to return with only the relic. The blue-haired woman soon faces away from the man and stared into the distance. The man was concerned and called out to her, "Priest." Placing the goblet onto a table, she then orders the man that he may return, but she soon decides on something. She announces that she was thinking of embarking on a pilgrimage. The man was surprised to learn that she wanted to go on a pilgrimage. He questions why she wanted to all of a sudden. He soon realizes something and wondered if it was because of the prophecy. The blue-haired priest looks down, telling him yes, because of the prophecy, and because there is also someone she needed to meet. Back to the snowy landscape, a foot is seen. It belongs to Marnak, who was carrying our big boy Pierre on his back. 10 years ago, all religious orders received a prophecy. The end will wear the husk of life, and come to fall upon the world. After arriving in an area surrounded by wooden fences, Marnak had managed to get help for Pierre as the guards helped him. A voice calls out to Marnak, telling him that he may return now. The voice belongs to a red-haired girl who continues to tell Marnak that she had already received permission from the guards. The guards who were carrying Pierre wondered how Marnak was able to carry someone as heavy as our big boy with one hand. The girl tells Marnak that she never would have guessed from the way he looks, but it appeared that Marnak was stronger than expected. He laughs a little from her compliment, telling her that he had guessed that he was a little strong. She soon changes the topic, asking about the heads that was in his hands, noting that she had heard that they were the source of all of their problems. She tells him that rather than having him carrying them around, she believed that it would be better if their guild held onto it for now. Marnak agrees with her suggestion, and proceeded to hand over the bag of heads. She then asks him if he had anywhere to sleep. Marnak tells her that he was planning to look for one right now. Just as she asks him if it was fine with him, Mother started to shout out murder. "Would you like to sleep at my place?" asked the girl with a lovely aura around her. Our boy started to blush hard upon hearing that request from her, but our dear mother began to slowly shout murder, more frequently while being angered. "Somebody is jealous." Mother continued to scream murder at Marnak after he accepted the red-haired girl's invitation to stay with her. "I was already aware," said Marnak as the morning light poured into the room. He continues to tell Mother that he was well aware, which is why he accepted. But Mother was still a little bit sus behind his intentions as she said murder in a slow way. Marnak tells her that he had no devious intentions with the young lady with the nice red hair. He blushes when he thought of how all she meant was that she would allow him to sleep in the Mercenary Guild guest room. A knocking on the door soon interrupts his thoughts as he looks at the door. "Hello, priest," said a voice as the door to his room opened. It was the nice lady with red hair. She tells Marnak about how she would have preferred to allow him to rest as long as possible, but there is something that he needs to attend to. Marnak finally gets up from the bed, telling her it was no worries. He walks closer to her to ask about what the issue was. She tells him with a smile that it looks like the Lord wants to see him. Mother was quite annoyed and angered by the presence of the red-haired girl. She even gave out the middle finger. Marnak was surprised to hear that the Lord wanted to see him. He then asks if she knew why he requested for him. A nervous sweat drips down her face, before she tells Marnak that Captain Galad from the mercenary group who passed away was actually the Lord's half-brother. The scene changes to a viewing of a glorious mansion that was covered in snow. A blond man informs the Lord that the priest has arrived. The Lord tells the servant to leave. A dark skin-toned man looks at Marnak silently. This was the Lord of Guis, Tradon Filion. He questions Marnak on whether if was the one who saw his brother's final moments. He then asked if he would like some tea, but Marnak started to smile creepily, because when Mother first saw the Lord, she drew an X. Marnak's eyes began to glow green once again. Instead of answering the Lord's questions, he gave one himself. "How is it, living life hiding as a human, I mean demon?" Hearing those words caused Tradon to let out a violet-purple aura around him. Even his eyes had changed from a dull color to bright red all of a sudden as he looks at Marnak. While Mother was hiding inside his pocket, there's only one reason why she drew a large X on the Lord as soon as she saw him. Because he wasn't a living being, and amongst them, there is only one being that can take the form of a human. Demons. A demonic crocodile made up of smoke and deathly aura appeared right above Tradon. Marnak went on to explain that while demons are stronger than any other being, they are beings that are unable to do anything on their own, and, in order to become a part of the world, they have no choice but to make deals with the beings of that world. That's why demons love all living beings. However, the gods, they hated the demons that gave as much as they took. The gods finally declared to their followers and all living beings, from now on, those beings will be called demons, and they are evil. And that's when it started, the priest's hunt for demons. Now that Marnak thought about it, Demon Contractor was a difficult class and people actively avoided it. He remembered because Demon Contractor was the second class that he played. Tradon continued to remain silent as he sat down, even after Marnak exposes his true identity as a demon. "Wow," he said with a smile to break the silence. Thanks to the dead Galad, Tradon was able to be in the presence of an important guest. Seeing that Marnak was able to see through his disguise, Tradon believes that he wasn't really a priest under the goddess of preservation. He then tells Marnak that he may call him Crawling Weight. Marnak introduces himself as well. He tells him that he was a priest serving the mother of corruption, Marnak. Crawling Weight thought that those priests had been devastated and didn't think that there would be a living son of corruption. He then tells Marnak to take a seat, as they were the only ones here anyways. Marnak proceeded to sit across from him. It was then that Crawling Weight reveals to him that he didn't call him for any particular reason. He then talks about Galad, the captain of the mercenary group that was with him. He wanted Marnak to tell him how he died exactly, being sure to pay Marnak for his efforts. With a smile on his face, Marnak gladly tells Crawling Wade about what had happened to his brother Galad. Marnak now stood alone in the open, staring up at the sky. He thought about how it was an unfortunate event. This winter, after complaining that he didn't have work, the Lord tried to give him sewn work under the table. Who would have thought he would die as a result? This thing called life, it's quite difficult. Mother shouted murder. As soon as Marnak opens a small pouch containing gold coins, he proceeds to keep the pouch, telling her that the Lord didn't tempt him using this gold. This gold was just his pure intention to know the truth. But Mother wasn't convinced as she shouted murder. Once again, Marnak tells her that he was not a priest that's greedy for gold, and that she had went too far with that. He tells her, did you know that gold doesn't rot? Mother grew more annoyed at Marnak. He soon takes her out and began to calm her down. He tells her to please listen to what he has to say until the end before she gets angry. It's important to listen to everything until the end. He soon starts to cough, which made Mother curious. Marnak poses another question to her, that there is something that doesn't rot and lasts as long as gold. Do you know what this? Mother was confused. He has a smile on his face. He tells her that it was his love towards Mother. Our boy manages to raise a hand. Marnak's face was filled with love as he held Mother dearly. Even Mother began to fall for his riz as she stuttered her words. They soon embraced one another. Mother keeps calling out to Marnak. He then tells her that for him, she will always be the most important to him. That's why there is no need for her to worry like that. You're back, Priest Marnak, said the red-haired girl with a smile on her face. Mother instantly began to become angry. She then proceeds to tell him to greet the priests from the teaching section. Marnak grew nervous as he didn't want to talk to those cult freaks from the teaching sect right now, but his eyes opened wide as he soon spots something off. The priests of the teaching sect were giving off a deadly aura. Marnak could sense something from Mother. As soon as they saw them, Mother told him that one of them has a holy relic. One of the priests steps forward, saying dedication to a life of right. I never would have thought that I'd see a priest of preservation here. The priest who stepped forward, introducing himself as Orvis, he was the weight on the scale of retribution. He introduces the other priests. A man with a horn on his head was called Cornu, while the lady was called Patina. Marnak bows his head as well, telling them it was nice to meet all of them. He introduces himself as a priest serving the god of preservation, Marnak. The red-haired girl continues to tell him that it seems like the priests of the education sect were staying here too, just like him. Hearing that gave Marnak a smile, as he thought of it was a relief. That means even if it's not now, he would still have plenty of chances to steal their relic. The only issue is when he absorbed the divinity from relics, some divinity of corruption is bound to leak out. He wonders if he has to steal it again. Flashback to chapter 1 where his head got sliced off after being caught. This made him question whether he was more like a bandit of corruption than a priest of corruption. Orvis proceeds to tell Marnak that they needed to go greet the Lord for a moment, and that they hope to have a full conversation the next time they meet. Marnak watches them as they left, wondering why they wanted to greet the Lord. The red-haired girl tells him that their guild usually provides shelter to priests like them for a small price. Hearing this made Marnak question her on whether she was going to make him pay for yesterday. That question makes her laugh as she asks Marnak if he thought that she allowed him to stay here because she had an interest in him. She only allowed him to stay here because he was a priest as well. Our simp felt embarrassed after finding out the real reason. He tells him of course not, but she doesn't stop there. She continues to tell him that she did have some intentions of her own to help him. Hearing those words made our boy blush even harder. She reaches out her hand towards him, telling him that in order to prevent the food from going bad, she was wondering if he could cast a blessing of preservation on it. She whispers into his ears. Marnak immediately pulls away from her at lightning speed, yelling at her about why she was whispering into his ear to say that. Even Mother was feeling more annoyed by her actions. Seeing his reaction causes her to chuckle for a bit. She looks at him with curious eyes, wondering why herself. Hearing that made Mother go crazy. Seems like you two get along well, said a voice. Marnak turns to see who it was. He questions the person behind the voice on why he didn't go with him. It was Priest Cornu, the man with a horn on his head. He tells Marnak that he didn't have a choice. It was because of his people. Many lords of the north didn't have great impressions of him, so he just showed his respect. But the red-haired girl tells him that she thinks that their lord didn't care about stuff like that. She explains to them that although he may be cold towards people, he's good at his job. He's clear about separating work from his own life. And since there are a lot of people that support him within GUIs, she suggests Cornu to refrain from speaking poorly of him. Cornu replies that he would keep that in mind. He soon asks her if she could please tell them more about the Lord. The three of them continue to converse for a while, drawing laughter and curious thoughts. But soon enough, Marnak asks Cornu about why they have decided to go visit the Lord. He tells him the reason with a smile. They were actually currently following the prophecies that they received 10 years ago. He explains to Marnak that Priest Orvis thought that the end of the world hiding in the husk of life was supposed to mean a demon. Marnak grew nervous as he asks Cornu if they were here because they thought the Lord was a demon. Of course not, replied Cornu. Priest Orvis is merely trying to check for himself, since he has the ability to check if someone is a demon or not, using his holy relic. Priest Orvis and Patina immediately prepared themselves as the holy relic began to shine bright in the presence of the Lord. He lets out his disguise. A demonic monster with a fierce red flames appeared in its mouth. An explosion is seen that sends ripples throughout the town and drew the attention of both Marnak and Cornu. Crawling Wade had finally revealed his true form of a demonic crocodile in the town. Marnak started to sweat even more as the chaos started to break out. "Oh, scales of retribution," shouted Orvis as he held his mighty hammer like Thor that fills the skies with lightning. "Die!" he shouts, slamming Thor's hammer straight into Crawling Wade's head. The impact of his attack causes another explosion as lightning falls from the heaven to strike the demon. Priest Cornu recognizes that attack as Priest Orvis's hammer of punishment. Priest Cornu readies himself with his own hammer, telling Marnak that it looks like Priest Orvis and Patina were fighting a demon and that they should go to help them. Marnak rushes forward ahead of Cornu, telling him to go ahead first and that he would be right behind him. He slams open a door, yelling out for Aaron. Turns out it was the red-haired girl's name. She questions him on what exactly was going on right now, but all Marnell tells her is where is it. He proceeds to carry her in princess style, asking Aaron where's the medical center in which Pierre is being treated. He needed her to tell him so that he could find it. With a heavy step that crushes the ground beneath his feet, Marnell leaps into the air while carrying Aaron. He lands with another heavy impact before rushing off quickly with Aaron in his arms. Doesn't this scene remind you of another anime? Comment below the anime that matches this scene. As they run through the city, Aaron could hear the screams of the citizens. Some were shouting out for help. She sees that the demon was going on a rampage in the city. Priest Orvis could be seen on top of its head. The citizens were screaming out in pain while some were trying their best to get away. Aaron calls out to Marnak, informing him of the presence of the monster. The monster is in the center of the city. She yells out to him just as the demon lets out a fierce roar. Marnak looks at her and tells her to forget about that thing. She needed to tell him where Pierre is. "There! He's over there!" shouted Aaron as she pointed in a certain direction. They soon arrived at the place where she pointed at. As he opened the door, Marnak shouted out to Pierre. They could see that he was resting peacefully inside the room. Aaron was relieved to see that Pierre was unharmed by the nearby chaos. Marnak smiles as well, stating that he couldn't let Pierre die in a disaster like this after he barely managed to save his life. He soon lifts the big boy up onto his shoulder with ease once again. He tells Aaron to hold on tightly as he wouldn't be able to carry her with both hands anymore. She falls for our boy's Riz and holds onto his back. With another heavy footstep that breaks the ground, our boy runs at full speed ahead, carrying both Aaron and Pierre together at once. As they run through the city, Aaron soon recalls something. She tells Marnak about a secret passage that she knew about. He immediately turns around to ask her where it is. Aaron points to a building that was ahead of them, telling him that he needed to go that way. She explains to him that that house has a secret passage that leads to the outskirts of Guis, but the door is locked. Bang! Went the door as our boy simply kicked it wide open. Aaron was amazed by this extraordinary scene. +1 to Riz level. Upon entering the house, Marnak came to a screeching halt. Aaron continued to be impressed by him, telling him that he was really strong. Marnak lets her down and tells her that if things start to get worse, she needed to run away through this passage. But Aaron was concerned about him and wondered what he would do. Marnak started to leave the both of them, telling them that he needed to go back. Aaron was alarmed to see this. She calls out to him, but it was no use. Our boy had started to run back out again. After running for a while, Marnak soon stumbles onto something. He was alarmed to see what it was and he recognizes it. It was Priest Cornu. He was bleeding badly on the ground as his armor was covered in blood. He opens his eyes and recognizes our boy Marnak. Marnak looks at his wounds closely and sees that they were too deep. As Cornu tried to stop the bleeding, Marnak knew that there was nothing he can do. He could only imagine the worst if he left him like this. Marnak immediately asks Cornu about where the other priest were that came with him. "Patina," said Cornu, "is dead." It was revealed that Priest Patina had half her body crushed by fallen debris. Her blood spilled everywhere till the point that her eye turned red and seemed to pop out from its socket. Marnak then asks if there was any way to defeat the demon. Cornu tells him about the other relic that they had brought with them, It was the white sword. Priest Orvis had managed to stab it into the demon's head. He continues to tell Marnak that if he manages to take the white sword and drive it into its brain, then the demon should die. This were the final words of Priest Cornu as the heavens finally reclaimed his soul. Rest in peace, brothers. Effin' chat boys. Marnak stood by his side till his lights went out. He soon calls out to Mother to chant, "Oh, Mother of Corruption, I will collect from this man." Green aura started to flow everywhere around Cornu's body as Marnak kneeled beside him. He had obtained 100 divinity. Priest Orvis was the last remaining priest. He lets out a fierce battle cry as his face was covered in blood. "Oh, scales of retribution," he shouted as he slams the hammer onto the white sword that was pierced into the demon's head. Priest Orvis' combined attack of sword and hammer seemed to be effective as the demon screams out in pain. As it began to rage all around, our boy takes this chance to move quickly as this was his chance. With his sword raised in the air, he leaps toward the demon's body. He pierces the sword deep into its body. He finally gets himself onto the demon's body as well and could see Priest Orvis still battling it out. All Marnak needed now was the white sword, but something else catches his attention. The demon's body began to move quickly. This sudden action causes our boy to turn sideways and causes him to figure out what it was doing. The demon was gonna do a death roll. The sudden turning of its body sends our boy flying through the air. He lands onto the ground with an immense impact. Mother shouts out murder. With concern, Marnak groans in pain as he laid on the ground. Mother continues to call out to him. He soon tells her that he was fine. He lays on his back, reminding her that she had told him that blessings follow disasters. Even after being thrown through the air, Marnak wore a smile on his face. He turns to face his side, stating that this has been an interesting turn of events. A shiny jewel was resting right beside him. He grabs onto it as Mother shouts out murder. He holds the jewel close to his chest, telling Mother that he was giving her another holy relic. "Please provide me with a new authority," Marnak said as his eyes was filled with that crazy green madness. "Release your seal, Mother," said Marnak. The jewel that he held in his hand started to let out a green aura. He soon falls into a trance of some sort. It looks like every holy relic has enough divinity for one authority. The jewel finally breaks into pieces as it lets out a violent green light. Marnak had reached a total of 11,723 divinity. He smiles as another seal has been lifted. Marnak soon asks Mother if she could please tell him what kind of difference it makes. Mother shouted murder and started to move on her own. Marnak looks at her and wondered if what she said is true. Mother was now quite a far distance from him. He was glad that she was able to support him from such a faraway place, but questions if she thinks that undoing a seal on a holy relic is pretty minuscule. Mother seems pissed as she shouts out murder again. Marnak laughs at her reaction, telling her that he was filled with joy about her growth and that what he said was a joke and she shouldn't be mad. Marnak tells her that since they weren't exactly in the best situation, he would stop making fun of her for the time being. He then starts another chant. "Oh, Mother of Corruption, I offer you 10,000 divinity. Please provide me with a new authority." Marnak appears in front of a giant seal made of green characters. It was the text of corruption. His eyes had completely turned into green goblin. He reads the characters of the seal, and could see that the effects of this authority are simple yet powerful. The moment the text of corruption is activated, dark green metaphysical tattoos appear all over his body and amplify his physical capabilities. Our boy just got more jacked than Captain America. He soon returns to the present, and tells Mother that it was not that bad of an authority. He starts to get up and informs her that it would be pretty useful in this situation. He noted that his crushed leg has finally healed as well, but something else soon catches his attention. He looks at the handle of a weapon nearby and wondered if it was what he thought it was. Priest Orvis was revealed to be near that weapon. It appears that he had died in the battle as he laid on the ground with no motion. Marnak tries to recall what had happened when he fell off the demon. He concluded that both him and Priest Orvis had fell off at the same time. Rest in peace was all he thought of in his mind as he looked at Priest Orvis. He then starts to chant once again. "Oh, Mother of Corruption, I will collect from this body." The green aura started to surround Marnak and Priest Orvis' dead body as he places his hands together. The demon was still doing fine as it lets out another fierce roar. It continues to cause mayhem and carnage throughout the city. Marnak looks at it and noted that something was odd. Mother questioned him on what it was. He recalls that the people who bought out the demon's anger were the teaching sect priests. But even though all the priests have already died, the demon is still running rampant like this for some reason. Marnak thought that demons weren't beast-like beings that only follow instincts. He had obtained 1,000 divinity from Priest Orvis. Marnak soon notices something else. He calls out to Mother. With tattoos appearing on his neck and face, he tells her that it might shake a little, so please hold on tight inside his pocket. Our boy started to run along the rooftop of the buildings towards the demon. He once again lands with a heavy impact that was strong enough to break the ground beneath him. The demon soon senses our boy near it. It waves its gigantic tail around in hopes that it crushes him. But Marnak casually hops over to its side. With a swing of its giant tail, it tries to land a deadly blow but misses it completely. Marnak had managed to run along its back. He soon spots the object that he was looking for. It was White's sword. It was still pierced into the demon's body. But something started to happen as Marnak drew closer to it. He sees that the demon was leaning its body. He smiles as he knew that the demon was intending to roll once again. He immediately leaps off of its body, as this was exactly what he was expecting. With a heavy landing once again, Marnak was unharmed from the same move that sent him flying before. He quickly moves over to the same side, knowing that the same move wouldn't work on him again. A third huge-ass explosion is seen erupting in the city once again. The impact of the explosion sent waves of dust throughout the city. The windows on the buildings shattered into pieces. Marnak had suddenly started to cough out blood. He looks at the blood on his hand, noting that it seems to be progressing faster than expected. The demon had finally ended his death roll. Marnak knew that when he uses the text of corruption, his body starts rotting from the inside. If the demon keeps stalling, the corruption will spread to the outside of his body and he would soon be out of commission. So there was no time to waste. Marnak immediately leaps towards the white sword. This time he was able to grab onto its handle. He recalls our boy Priest Cornu's words about the white sword that Priest Orvis managed to stab into the demon's head. If Marnak takes that sword and managed to drive it into its brain, the demon should die. The white sword started to resonate with Marnak as he held onto it. With a smile on his face, he pulls out the sword and tells it to awaken. Lord Tradon. I forgot that our boy is a villain for a moment. The demon's eyes soon started to regain its color. Blue aura started to rampage throughout its body, tearing it to shreds. A massive blue light soon covered the entire city. The citizens all stood still as they witnessed the bright blue light. Even Aaron, who was taking care of Pierre, notices it. The bright blue light was coming from the center of the city. Once the light had died down, Lord Tradon appears on the ground with one of his arms missing. "Are you awake now?" asked Marnak as he appears beside him with a smile on his face. Lord Tradon smiles upon seeing him, stating that seriously, meeting Marnak was the greatest blessing he could have hoped for. Marnak tells him that there was no need for that. It all happened because this sword was suppressing his mind. Marnak then reaches out his hand to him, asking how he thought of his 2 golds worth of help. This drew a smile on Lord Tredon's face. He grabs onto Marnak's hand, telling him that the 2 gold coins were definitely more than worth it. A blue flame appears in someone's hand. It belongs to the blue-haired girl at the start of the story who had taken back the goblet from our boy. She lets the ball of fire drop from her fingertips. It lands on the snowy ground beneath her. It soon spreads all around, removing the snow to reveal the ground in its true form. The ranger who sliced Marnak's neck was with her. He tells her that he knew it. Whenever he sees it, it is truly such an incredible authority. It turns out that the blue flame was able to burn certain things away, and not everything. The ranger points out to the girl that there were no bodies. He was certain that he had cut the boy's throat here. He noted that it seems like plenty of time had passed, and either monsters or wild beasts have taken his body. The blue-haired girl agrees with his reasoning, telling him that it was possible. She soon thanks him for leading her all the way here. However, there was one last thing she would like to ask for. It involves the nearby cities. She wanted to know the names of each of them. Back at the city of Guis, destruction was all that was left after the intense battle with the demon. Marnak walks through the ruins of the city alongside the servant of the Lord, who guides him to a certain building and had opened a door for Marnak. Upon entering the room, Marnak smiles. The Lord welcomes him with open arms, shouting at him that he was waiting for him to come. He starts to praise Marnak, asking him about why it seems like he had grown even more handsome every time he saw him. Marnak thanks him for the compliment. The Lord continues to call our boy the demon slaughterer, and that there was no way for him to express his gratitude to Priest Marnak. But isn't the demon alive and breathing right now? Questioned Marnak. The Lord tells him that demons like him needed to live too, as he believed that there was no life that was born to die. Marnak tells him that he wasn't wrong. After everything was taken care of, Tradon shared to the town that Marnak was the one that defeated the great demon that had appeared, and that he had also saved him as well. As a result, while it doesn't suit Marnak, he was given the grandiose nickname of Demon Slaughterer. And maybe because Aaron has a special fondness for the nickname Demon Slaughterer, she refuses to stop calling him Demon Slaughterer in public, grabbing the attention of everyone around them. Just like this, members of the public whispers to one another, asking each other if Marnak was the famous priest nicknamed the Demon Slaughterer. As he walked past the citizens, they continued to speculate about him, hearing that he's plenty strong unlike how he looks, and that he managed to cut down 7 bandits on his own. Rumors of how he defeated a demon meant that 7 bandits were nothing to him. Hearing all those words about him causes Marnak to quickly escape from their sights. Meanwhile, the citizens were still concerned about the chances of another monster like the demon would appear again. Marnak and Tradon soon sat down. Marnak then states that it was really odd to see that Tredon's wooden prosthetic arm and leg were able to move so smoothly. Tradon reveals to Marnak that he only moves that smoothly in front of him. He only limps around when he was around other people, and in order to move around naturally like this, Tradon needed to pay a large price in return. Marnak was alarmed to learn this from him. He soon questions what kind of price he was talking about. With a smile on his face and his teacup raised up, Tradon tells Marnak that sooner or later, the hair on his body will lose their strength and start falling like leaves in the middle of autumn. Hair loss is one of the most painful things a man can experience. Tradon was confident that if Marnak meets him in a few months, then he would face him with his bald head. As a fallow man, Marnak cried tears for Tradon as he imagined how he would look like with a bald head. Tradon soon changes the topic and asks if Marnak happens to have around a week's worth of time. Marnak replies that he had more than enough. "That's perfect!" shouted Tradon. He proceeds to tell him that he had received a job, where the requester had specially asked for him. Marnak wondered why they had wanted him. Tradon reveals to him that the requester seems to think that he would be perfect for the job after hearing stories of the demon slaughterer. It seems that the job has something to do with the holy relics of the ancient empire. Marnak was soon alarmed to hear that. Tradon tells him that the reward for the job would be 5 whole nips of gold, and that it would be paid in advance too. And if they deemed that he was of large help to their efforts to explore the ruins, they said that they would give you one of the discovered relics. Mother immediately shouts murder. Marnak agrees with her, thinking that it would be better to take a look for himself. Both Mother and Marnak agree to accept the job. A long time ago, there was an ancient empire. They ended the era of distraught mages, and brought about unity to the continent. And in their current age, where technology has been recreated, those holy relics are known as precious treasures that contain powerful abilities. In other words, most items that are considered high-ranked items in this world are actually relics of the ancient empire. Marnak soon meets up with a group of mercenaries. He introduces himself as a priest under the goddess of preservation. The man standing in front of the others introduces himself as the one that had made the request for this job. His name is Carmen Valtis. As Marnak shook his hand, he thought of the surname Valtis. Carmen tells Marnak that whatever he was thinking was correct. He reveals that Anthony Valtis of the Black Wolves was his father, and just in case he might misunderstand, he reveals that he is his father's illegitimate child. Marnak could only think of the words illegitimate child. He couldn't fathom that the principled man of the Black Wolves would have an illegitimate child. Marnak thought that he would be alone after losing his wife. Looks like the rumor and reality of a person are different. However, Marnak knew that digging deeper into this topic wouldn't be proper. He then asks Carmen if he could introduce the people that were behind him. Carmen agrees with his request. He introduces the mage who was wearing the robe that was covering her head as Tunisa. She will be the one that will be guiding them to the ancient relics. And the man with the horn on his head was Sukus. He's part of the Unihorn tribe, a big guy that you can always count on. Sukus shakes Marnal, telling him that it was nice to meet the demon slaughtered. Marnak shakes his hand, telling him that he was actually embarrassed by that nickname, so they should just call him Marnak. Sukus continues to tell him that an accomplishment you have achieved is nothing to be embarrassed about. Carmen decides that they should move out as they had finished introducing one another. He tells them that it should take them about 2 days on foot to reach the site, so they can continue their conversation on the way. 2 days have passed. Night has fallen as the group is seen resting around a campfire in the forest. Carmen looks at Marnak, who is sitting behind him with his eyes closed. He proceeds to ask him if he was not sleeping, as it would be better if he could even get some sleep. Marnak smiles and tells him that he had enough sleep so that he didn't feel tired. Carmen noted that it looks like Marnak was still young and that there was still plenty of time till the sun rises. Carmen asks if he had any interesting stories, as he was sure that a man like Marnak would have met his fair share of women during his life. Hearing that question made Marnak nervous as he avoided eye contact, telling Carmen that he was like the fresh snow that has covered a field. Carmen was surprised to learn that. He then proceeds to ask if there was any particular type of women he likes. This made Marnak think for a moment. He soon tells him that he likes women that prefer to be by his side. Mother remains silent and hidden inside his coat even after hearing Marnak's answer. Carmen tells him that he wasn't wrong. Whenever you wake up in the morning, there is nothing better to see than your lady sleeping peacefully by your side. Carmen reveals that he personally believes that a woman's heart is most important. Hearing those words causes Mother to shout out murder, murder. She even gave a thumbs up for Carmen's answer. He continues to say that it might be obvious, since your heart is within your chest, In order for your heart to be welcoming, your chest has to be large to be able to support it. Carmen then finally reveals his true desires of a woman. He reveals that he likes woman with big chest. "Murder!" shouted Mother as she heard those words. Comment below if you think the same way, lads. Marnak tells him that it was not bad to have a clear vision of what he wants, as he was sure that it'll be of big help during his journey. However, he proceeds to give a piece of advice to Carmen, telling him that he suggests that he doesn't talk about this in front of women. Carmen replies that he doesn't go around and talk about his kind of stuff, and that he was only saying this because he was with Marnak. Carmen felt that whenever he has a conversation with him, it felt like he was talking to an old friend. "Me too," said Marnak with a smile on his face. Mother shouted murder as she alarmed to learn this relationship. The two men continued to converse and laughed with one another throughout the night, while Mother continued to voice her worries. Mother continues to speak to Marnak even when the sun was up. He knew that she had told him to be selective with his friends, but he truly enjoyed talking to this man here. Mother continued to shout murder at him. "This is it," said Tunisa. She slowly lifts her hood up, revealing a stick with a light in her hand. She tells the group that she was going to open the entrance to the ruins. Entering the ruins of the ancient empire was easy. First, they had to find the key, then they moved to the coordinates written on the key. After that they read the passage written in ancient language on the key. Finally insert the key clockwise or anti-clockwise, turn the key. However, since only mages can read the ancient language written on the key, the role of a mage on explorations like these is indispensable. The only exception to that would be players. That's right, as a player, Marnak was able to read ancient language, but of course, he had to keep the fact that he could read ancient language a secret. Carmen then turns to the others to tell them that they should go in now after placing his own arm into the portal, but Marnak knew that in this world where he had no relationship whatsoever, the key was too difficult for him to obtain. "Whoa!" shouted everyone from the group as they stood in a new place. They have reached ruins that had not been discovered by anyone else before. Carmen compared these ruins to the ones that he had visited before, stating that this one was one of the best persevered ones. He soon asks them if they should start exploring as he was sure that there was going to be plenty of artifacts here. Marnak as well couldn't help but smile at the ruins. He couldn't believe that he would get the chance to see the ruins that he had only seen in photos. Marnak felt like his heart was going to burst. Tunisa stares at Marnak for acting weird, but soon just lets out a humph noise. The group had entered the ruins that were being lit with torches on the wall. They soon reached a massive door that towered above them. Characters were written in a glowing blue color. Marnak sees that it was ancient text. "It translates to prove that imperial blood flows through your body." "Blood," said Tunisa. She warns the group that if they didn't have ancient imperial blood, they better get ready for battle. The writings on the door soon turned red as it opened. Weird humanoid figures began to rush forward. They kinda looks like Obito from Naruto. More of those strange figures soon started to race towards Marnak and the group. Sukus lets out a battle cry as he swings back his massive hammer. With a single swing, he manages to smash a few of the strange figures into pieces. Tunisa started to chant a spell, causing a red aura to slowly appear around her body. The ground beneath them started to crack and light was peeking through it. The ground beneath the strange figures began to explode as more cracks and light started to appear below them. A massive explosion is created as the strange figures were sent into various directions. Some of them soon started to fly towards Marnak himself. He prepares for the upcoming battle, drawing his sword. With a couple of swings, he slices and dices the strange figures that were flying towards him with ease. Bodies of the strange figures started to disintegrate about being cut, but Mother shouts murder to Marnak, which causes him to turn around. A clash of swords is seen. Marnak had managed to stop the attack of one of the strange figure. This one had a blade coming out from its wrist. Marnak thought that there was one more and that it would be better for him to kill this one first before doing something else. But before he could finish it off, an arrow suddenly appears and snipes the strange figure's head. Kill steal. Marnak smiles as the strange figure collapses after being shot in the head with the arrow. Carmen was the one who have killed the strange figure with his arrow. He gives a thumbs up to Marnak, who in turn thanks him for the help. "Why do you keep pushing the enemy between our lines, Marnak, or I could have gotten hurt?" shouted Sukus. Carmen and Marnak soon caught wind of the shouts. Tunisa explains to him that it was the fastest way to get rid of their enemy, and that they managed to kill all of them anyway, so she preferred it if he could stop complaining. But Sukus doesn't stop. He continues to pick a fight, but Carmen cuts in, telling them to stop their fight right now. Sukus could only grit his teeth hard after receiving that order from Carmen. He soon sits down in anger. Carmen then approaches Marnak, complimenting him that he really lives up to his nickname, the Demon Slayer. Author changed it from Demon Slaughterer to Demon Slayer, As Marnak returns his sword into its sheath, he informs Carmen that he felt ashamed to display such an unholy sight as a priest. Carmen admits that he was not wrong about that. Marnak then praises Carmen's abilities with the bow, as he was incredible with it. Carmen reveals to him that he has been using the bow since he was little. He would practice as much as he could with it, even going as far as to bandage his injured arms in order to practice even more. Tunisa soon appears with them, asking them when they were leaving. She tells them that she was fine with moving out immediately, and that she still has plenty of mana left too. Hearing her shouting out commands made Sukus furious. He turns around to question Tunisa, asking why she kept rushing to get a move on when they've barely gotten any rest. He then calls her a spell-mumbling idiot, pointed out that people who need to physically move around like Marnak and himself needed to rest. Tunisa points out to Sukus that she believes everyone else would agree with her, and that since everyone except Sukus is fine, it'd be better if they reach the end of the ruins as soon as possible, rather than waste time here. She then tells it honestly that she believes that Sukus was just trying to make a scene at this point. "What did you say?" shouted Sukus after hearing those words from her. Carmen then stands step, telling everyone that they will rest before they start moving, and that was the end of this conversation. Tunisa gave a salty expression after being rejected. Marnak however was laughing in his head. He knew that in this world, those who are mages are usually unstuck and are mostly a bunch of jackasses. Here it's easy to become a mage, and that is by birth, being born as a mage, although there are some differences that could vary from person to person. For those who are born with mana, it awakens once they reach a certain age. When that happens, knowledge regarding the ancient language floods their brains, and without paying any other cost to do so, they can learn ancient spells. Using the mana that is able to break the laws of this world, they are reborn as a mage. However, due to the large amount of knowledge that fills their heads, they innately hate learning new things. As a result, most mages become strong-willed and uneducated idiots. Most are self-centered, and they don't care about the people around them. She's the same as the other mages Marnak had met, but if he was being honest, among the mages, she's actually considered one of the more well-mannered ones. Carmen soon states that they had gotten enough rest, so he decides that their group should move on to the next area. But a loud growling noise soon catches all of their attention. The passageway that they were about to walk into had a door sliding down out of the blue. The passageway behind of them soon closes. "No!" shouted Carmen as he tells the others that the doors close behind them, but a pinkish glowing light catches the attention of the others. A portal seemed to be opened, summoning a huge stone golem. It was fully summoned as it lands in a superhero stance. A single blue light shined brightly on its head. Marnak smiles nervously at this sudden monster in front of them. He knew that it couldn't be true, as the enemies up to this point were too weak for a ruin like this. It looks like this Gundam monster was the real deal. Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.